Everything changed in a matter of seconds when the true, exhausting scale of the 2026 season was laid bare. Welcome to NFL Nexus. Before we really get going and dive deep into this explainer, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, leave a comment down below with your thoughts, and seriously consider becoming a channel member to support the deep, cinematic breakdowns we bring you every single week. We absolutely couldn't do this without you. Today, we are undertaking a massive, intense analysis of the Houston Texans. We're looking at a newly revamped roster, a team with genuine, undeniable championship aspirations, standing right on the edge of a looming logistical nightmare. Now, a logistical nightmare in the NFL isn't just about tricky scheduling or getting a bad draw. It is a profound, deep, physical toll. We're talking about hours trapped in metal tubes while lactic acid pools in the legs of massive 300-pound athletes. It means stiff hamstrings, completely disrupted sleep cycles, and battered bodies that simply do not have the necessary time to heal before the next collision. This isn't just about who they play on Sunday. It is about a schedule forged in fire. It's a relentless cross-country gauntlet that threatens to physically and mentally break this team before they even reach the month of January. Okay, let's dive into exactly what this looks like.
I want you to look closely at this massive number on the screen, 28,470. Just let that sink in for a moment. Take a deep breath and really think about the scale of that. That is not a salary cap figure. That is not a stadium attendance record. That is the punishing, bone-rattling amount of air miles the Houston Texans must survive this upcoming season. Based on data projecting the road trips for 2026, this number plunges us straight into the exhausting, unforgiving reality awaiting this franchise. Over 28,000 miles traversing time zones, battling intense jet lag, and enduring the brutal biological toll of pressurized cabins week after agonizing week. You see, the science of NFL travel is absolutely unforgiving. Sitting in those pressurized environments at 30,000 feet actively restricts optimal blood flow. It dehydrates essential muscle tissue. It literally works against the intense physical recovery required after you've just been in what is essentially a Sunday car crash on the gridiron. The sheer scale of this travel itinerary isn't just some minor inconvenience that you can brush off. It is a profound, season-altering strategic hurdle that will violently test the very foundation, the depth, and the pure physical endurance of this entire locker room.
Section 1. A grueling path ahead. The NFL's ultimate gauntlet.
Because here's the thing. It is not just the massive distance that hangs over Houston like a dark cloud. It is the sheer brutality of the opponents waiting for them when they finally step off those planes. When we zoom out and look at the landscape of the entire league, factoring in projected win totals and critical offseason roster moves, the extremes are absolutely staggering. Look at the Arizona Cardinals. They are staring down the absolute toughest slate in the NFL, locked into a vicious, unforgiving cycle against heavily armed division rivals and top-tier playoff contenders, a schedule that will demand near perfection just to survive the season. Then, on the complete flip side of the coin, you have the Detroit Lions. They've been handed the statistically easiest path, offering them a much softer, more forgiving runway to navigate. And then, right there, hovering dangerously near the top of the danger zone, are the Houston Texans. They are facing the 7th toughest schedule in professional football. Think about what that actually means. There are absolutely no easy stretches here. There are no soft landings where the starters can rest in the fourth quarter. It is just a relentless, weekly march against teams loaded with premium talent, teams that are completely desperate for their own playoff spots. Achieving their championship aspirations isn't just going to require executing complex playbooks or having a great quarterback. It's going to require surviving a meticulously crafted schedule that honestly feels built specifically to shatter their physical and mental endurance.
The hidden trap of the NFL calendar almost always lies in the margins. The Texans are projected to have the 3rd highest travel miles in the entire league. But to really understand this, we have to look closely at the two teams currently sitting ahead of them on this list, the San Francisco 49ers and the Los Angeles Rams. Both of those West Coast teams eclipse the massive 30,000-mile mark for one specific, highly isolated reason. They are taking massive, continent-hopping international flights all the way to Australia for Week 1. That singular, colossal 14-hour flight heavily skews their total numbers for the year. If you remove that single anomalous trip to the literal other side of the planet, the Houston Texans immediately cement themselves as the most heavily traveled domestic team in the National Football League. No one else is bouncing around North America quite like this. They are the ultimate road warriors this year. They've been completely stripped of any geographical advantage, forced to constantly pack their bags, live out of suitcases, and navigate airports while their rivals get to sleep in their own beds and stick to their normal routines.
Section 2. The frequent flyer gauntlet, spanning the continent.
Picture the scene unfolding across 9 separate road games. Imagine it. Exhausted players, heavy, bruised limbs, dragging themselves through dim, quiet airport terminals deep into the night, just hours after violently physical battles on the field. The travel fatigue compounds week by agonizing week. It builds up in the joints and the muscles, and the absolute pinnacle of this exhaustion is captured perfectly in an 8,000-mile journey. That number is the staggering, colossal magnitude of just one specific hurdle on their calendar. A monumental Week 6 clash against the Jacksonville Jaguars, taking place all the way over in London. We're talking about a round-trip flight across the Atlantic Ocean that strips away any lingering sense of normalcy for these athletes. Make no mistake, this isn't just a football game. It is a season-altering logistical nightmare. The physical toll of crossing 5 different time zones in a matter of hours is immense. It forces these finely tuned players to reset their circadian rhythms entirely. It often leaves them waking up at 2 in the morning local time, wide awake, staring at the ceiling of a foreign hotel room when their bodies desperately need deep, restorative sleep. Playing a violently physical sport under those exact conditions, and then turning right back around, crossing those same oceans and those same time zones to immediately return to the domestic grind, it is an absolute shock to the human system.
And the long-haul flights do not stop when they finally return from Europe. The Texans will be spanning the entire North American continent in a relentless, exhausting zigzag pattern. Out to the West Coast to face the Los Angeles Chargers inside the towering, relentless artificial noise of SoFi Stadium. Then right back across the entire country to face the Washington Commanders. Up into the notoriously hostile, unforgiving trenches of the Philadelphia Eagles, where the crowd alone can dictate a game. Then into the blue-collar, cold steel grit of the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Cleveland Browns, the Green Bay Packers. I mean, just listen to that list. Seriously, feel the overwhelming exhaustion of an itinerary that never ever lets up. Every single away game drags this team from coast to coast, throwing them against some of the most punishing physical defensive fronts in the entire sport, ensuring there is never a single week to simply catch their breath.
Section 3. Beating the freezing cold. The elements.
Now, we have to shift our focus from the pure exhaustion of constant travel to the acute physical danger of the environments themselves, because where they are traveling matters just as much as how far. Houston is a team built in and accustomed to the suffocating humid warmth of the Texas South. That's their DNA. But these widespread northern locations threaten to introduce absolute winter devastation to a warm weather roster. Houston must travel over 2,000 miles into the bitter, unforgiving north. Lambeau Field and Cleveland Browns Stadium are not just venues. They aren't just stadiums. Late in the year, they transform into atmospheric weapons. The bone-chilling cold pierces right through layers of thermal gear. The freezing turf hardens until it feels exactly like running on solid concrete beneath a player's cleats, vibrating through the knees and lower back on every single tackle. The heavy, swirling winds entirely alter a quarterback's throwing mechanics, forcing coordinators to completely scrap their entire aerial game plan and rely on sheer brute force. In these environments, the elements themselves step onto the field and become a fierce, undeniable 12th defender.
This dynamic sets up a massive comparison in how the NFL schedule makers dictate a franchise's fate before a single snap is even played in the preseason. Think about the ideal scenario. Catching Cleveland and Green Bay early in the calendar, say September or October, when the air is crisp, the ground is still soft, and the weather is totally manageable. You just go in and play football. But the nightmare scenario? Drawing these exact same road trips in late December, right in the teeth of inbound blizzards? This franchise knows this nightmare all too well. The haunting, bitter memories of their recent freezing playoff exit in Foxborough still linger deeply within the walls of the Houston facility. We all remember it, right? The dropped passes, the frozen fingers completely unable to grip the football, the breath misting in the freezing air, and the blown coverages because bodies physically lock up and fail to respond the way they normally do in sub-zero temperatures. A warm weather team stepping into an absolute icebox late in the year changes absolutely everything about how a violent football game is won or lost.
Section 4. The Texas Heavyweight Clash, Battle for the State.
While the road presents a freezing, exhausting gauntlet, the absolute climax of their home schedule lies in a massive, statewide gladiatorial clash against their fierce in-state rivals, the Dallas Cowboys. The breakdown details this dynamic perfectly, calling it a golden opportunity to prove itself as the top dog in the state in front of millions of eyes. This right here is the ultimate primetime wishlist game. It connects deeply to the very foundation and the soul of NFL history in Houston. Remember the epic 2002 franchise debut? The Houston Texans stepping onto the field for the very first time as a living, breathing organization? You had David Carr under center, the deafening explosion of the hometown crowd, and securing their first-ever monumental victory, 19-10, directly against the Dallas Cowboys. The narrative weight of this matchup is staggering. It is a collision of past and present, a battle of pride and deep-seated Texas legacy.
The pressure surrounding this specific Texas-centric matchup is absolutely immense. We are talking about claiming the Texas crown. Winning this game isn't just about securing another victory in the standings or bumping up your win percentage. It is a brutal, unforgiving battle for state supremacy. It is about total dominance on local sports talk radio. It's about controlling the regional news cycle and establishing a psychological momentum that will echo through the locker room for the rest of the season. A primetime loss to Dallas doesn't just hurt the record, it completely ruins the week's media narrative and places a crushing psychological burden on the players. The NFL knows this is a blockbuster event. They know it's a true ratings juggernaut, and playing it under the intense, blinding lights of national primetime makes the stakes almost suffocating for everyone involved on that field.
Section 5. Timing the perfect rest. Survival strategy.
Because to survive the thousands upon thousands of miles, the freezing cold of the north, and the primetime pressure cookers at home, there is a hidden strategy behind every successful NFL schedule. It's the absolute biological necessity of strategically timed rest. Compare the reality of last season to what they desperately need to survive right now. Let's look at the 2025 reality. Houston was handed a very early Week 6 bye. Now, at the time, that early pause saved them. They were sitting at a turbulent 2-3 start, and the break let them catch their breath, recalibrate the playbook, and spark a massive win streak. It felt like a blessing, but it came at a severe cost. It left them playing an endless, grueling second-half stretch without a single moment of relief. Nagging soft tissue injuries piled up exponentially, and dead legs became totally obvious in January after playing 12 straight weeks of elite collision-heavy football. Now for 2026, looking at the travel miles and the sheer violence of their upcoming opponents, the wish list demands a crucial late break, Week 10 or later. Finding a bye in that sweet spot of the back-end calendar is mathematically and physically vital. It is the only way to repair a battered roster, heal up those micro tears in the muscles, and get the players completely juiced and recovered for a deep, bruising postseason run.
Section 6. The final playoff push. Closing the season.
If the Texans can somehow survive the 28,000 miles, if they can survive the bitter cold, the heavyweights, and the lack of sleep, they need a flawless runway into January playoff football. The stakes reach their absolute dramatic climax in Week 18. Their ideal, yet still highly dangerous closing scenario is a divisional battle against the Tennessee Titans. Now, make no mistake about it, this is a rebuilding Titans threat, but they are a profoundly different beast than the one Houston faced back in 2025. They are armed with defensive mastermind Robert Saleh acting as their new head coach. Saleh's complex pressure schemes and brilliantly disguised coverages are specifically designed to confuse opposing offenses, force errant panic throws, and put quarterbacks violently into the turf. They also feature the explosive vertical power of the 4th overall draft pick, wide receiver Carnell Tate, who can take the top off a defense in an instant. And they have Cam Ward, stepping into his second year as an NFL quarterback, inspiring serious, quiet confidence inside that building. The Titans will be better. They will be incredibly hungry to play spoiler and completely ruin Houston's playoff seeding. Yet, despite these very real, very potent threats, facing a rebuilding divisional opponent at home, inside the warmth and comfort of their own stadium, is Houston's absolute best-case scenario to secure an essential, hard-fought win and cap off the campaign on a massive emotional high note.
Section 7. Surviving the Gauntlet, a roster tested.
We have comprehensively analyzed the terrifying scale of this upcoming journey. The 7th toughest schedule in the entire National Football League, nearly 30,000 miles in the air, enduring pressurized cabins and sheer bone-deep exhaustion. A grueling, season-altering trip across the Atlantic Ocean to London that completely shatters circadian rhythms. Freezing, bone-chilling showdowns in the absolute worst of the northern winter elements, and the suffocating, inescapable pressure of a primetime clash against Dallas for the crown of Texas. This is a cinematic, deeply unforgiving test of endurance that will push every single man in that locker room to his absolute physical and mental limit. The Texans have made vital offseason tweaks, building a roster that is far more well-rounded, explosive, and potent on paper. But the truest test of this franchise will be whether those newly forged weapons actually hold up against the undeniable, unforgiving physics of this travel schedule. So the ultimate question hanging over the 2026 season, can a revamped Houston Texans roster actually survive the NFL's ultimate gauntlet? Can they endure the miles, the bitter cold, and the heavyweight giants to claim their crown? I want to know exactly what you think.
Drop down into the comments right now and let me know how you see this brutal schedule playing out. And remember, if you want more deep cinematic coverage like this explainer, you have to subscribe to NFL Nexus. Hit the like button on this video and take the next crucial step by becoming a channel member today to directly support our deep dives. We literally can't make these without your backing. The season is fast approaching, the miles are waiting. We will see you next time.